Welcome to episode 129. If you are new here, my name is V. Lee. This is a show where I interview upcomers, doers, and ballers of the real estate investing world. The purpose is to help you to reach financial freedom in real estate investing faster. Today, I invited Shenoah Grove of Texas Real Estate Investor Associations on the show. In this show, we will talk about the real estate, life, and health, and just everything real estate related or running a business. Shenoah is a fourth-generation Texas real estate investor. She is very active in the real estate investing space and has a vast amount of knowledge. So join us for tips and strategies on how to be successful while maintaining a work-life balance. Hey, thank you for taking the time and being here today, Shenoah. It's really great to have you here. So before we jump in, would you mind to give the audience a quick introduction?
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Shenoah Grove here, founder and leader of Texas REIAs, Texas's largest association of real estate investors. And V, always a pleasure to see you and be with you and kind of share some of this awesome real estate knowledge that we've both built up over these years that we've been investing. So good to see you. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, it's my honor. We don't get to visit very often, but when we do, I really cherish the time that we get to talk. And I always want to listen to whatever you got to say. And the audience, if you haven't been to one of Shenoah's meetings, you got to come. It's very high energy. And there's a lot of people that you get to meet. You know, Shenoah, from the outside looking in, you seem to have it all. Right? You are a very successful business owner. You have a beautiful family. You're very healthy and you keep yourself in such wonderful shape. I always admire that. So how do you do it all?
So great question. I will say that I think a big part of it is part of my identity and part of my identity statement, right? So when I think about who I am and how I want to show up and how I want to use who I am to be able to help and influence other people, I'm going to be someone who's going to show up and with all of my authenticity, all of my integrity, and really, I think, be able to inspire people by showing up not just as a successful business owner, but also as a person who takes care of and maintains her health and considers that a huge aspect of our lives. I was reading a book probably about 5 years ago. It's called Your Body is Your Gym. And it described this Navy SEAL walking into someone's house and someone who's about to work with and train. And the guy said, "Let me just show you all around, my great house," and showing him all the different rooms in his house and how it's, such this beautiful place. And the Navy SEAL stopped and corrected them and said, "Really, it is your body that is your home. It is your body that is your temple.
Your body is your home." Okay.
Exactly. And this is the home that we have forever. And we can choose to abuse it and beat it up and feed it a lot of stress, or we can choose to serve it by honoring our mind, the things that we put in our mind, the stories that we tell ourselves, the food that we put in our mouth, the stuff that we read, the people that we hang around with, and just how we, take care of and maintain that. And for me, I'm not one of those folks who wants to live forever, but for the time that I am here, I want to be as healthy as I can. And part of that is the mental game. And then part of that is the things that we put in and how we treat our body, and also how we manage stress. As a real estate investor, I will say I've had many stressful years, right? So I've invested in multiple different market cycles, starting in 2003, and never had to go back and take a job from anybody else or take a paycheck from anybody else. But it was not without a fair amount of stress, and some of that self-imposed stress. So I'll admit that, just because of, again, part of my identity is I'm an achiever, I'm a hard worker, I'm going to go figure it out. But I think once you kind of, reach a level in real estate where you feel comfortable from an income standpoint, from a wealth standpoint, some of those things life starts to be a little bit less stressful. Now we're thinking about what that looks like. Sometimes I often feel like I'm a 20-year overnight success, but a lot of the things that I put into place at the beginning of my business are serving me really well now. We get rewarded in public public for the things that we do in private over and over and over again. Consistency, right? And so feel like I've done a lot of things in private that has created what looks really good on paper and feels really good like in the body as well. So, and that's I think something that people need to understand. It's not just about your Instagram or your Facebook of all the wonderful things that you're doing. It's tell me what you're doing and tell me what you're doing in private and tell me what you're doing consistently day in and day out. And probably one of my favorite quotes is getting more information, which I feel like a lot of people want. And for me, I still love and get all the time. But the quote was, information's not the problem. We all have enough information out there for all of us to be billionaires with six-pack abs.
Right.
But tell me what you do day in and day out. Right? Show me your calendar and show me what you do consistently. And that will tell me who you are more than anything else. I will say one of the things for me is I definitely show up being very consistent. You can say a lot of things about me, but you will never call me inconsistent because we're very dedicated and stick by a lot of.
You are very dedicated.
Principles.
Yeah, you are very dedicated. I've seen that from you over the years.
Yeah, I think it's part of being long-term greedy and making some short-term sacrifices. So to be able to achieve the things that we ultimately all want. And I think that's a big part of it. And just kind of having a solid investment philosophy that you stick to. And right now, one of the books that I'm reading and loving is Poor Charlie's Almanac. So Poor Charlie's Charlie Munger. So Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's right-hand man, has been by his side for I think 40, 50 plus years. And he's got these 10 different principles that he uses in his investments as part of his philosophy when he's purchasing the different businesses that he purchases. And I just started reading this book and I was so encouraged that so many of my philosophies line up with his. Now, I don't see myself being at billionaire status,
well, you never know.
But you never know. You never know.
Young,
it is that consistent application. And if you think about probably the things that keep him young, it is that desire to continue to learn, that desire to continue to grow. And for me, I certainly have that. I love the saying by Charles Tremendous Jones, you will be the same person in 5 years you are today, except for three things: the people you meet, the places you go, and the books you read, right? What are you feeding? What are you feeding in your mind? What are you feeding in your brain? And how does that show up for you in life? So I think honor yourself along that journey, do things to reduce stress and take care of yourself so that, the time that you are here on this earth, it can be wonderful, joyous, and your health span is long, right? Your health span is long is how I think about it.
Well, I know this is a real estate show, but I feel like in recent time, I talked to a lot of people and some are very successful. And the biggest regret that most of them have is they didn't take care of their health the right way. So we got off on a little bit because I think it's overall a whole package, right? Real estate is a means to an end to whatever you desire to accomplish. But at the same time, there's all the other things like health, like social, family, life, balance. So before we go into your other part about your work-life balance and harmony, maybe do a little bit of real estate talk. I know you've been involved in over 1,000 transactions. Tell us more about that. How did you get in? What did you do? This episode is brought to you by Buzz Vacation Rentals, a premier property management company in Houston and Galveston areas. Buzz Vacation Rentals specializes in managing short-term rentals the right way. Give Buzz a call at 281-549-8432 to learn more, or check out their website at listwoodbuzz.com, and that is listwoodbuzz.com. Now, back to the Real Estate Ballers Show.
When I first started, it's kind of interesting. So my husband, at the time we were dating, but my husband said, Shenoah, we're going to be real estate investors, and I need you to get your realtor license. And I'm like, excuse me, I have no intention of becoming a realtor. There were some choice words that went back and forth with us. And at the end of the day, my husband's very convincing and we just drew straws and I lost. So I became the realtor. And the market that we were in, that we got started in Austin, was a market that was really suffering after the dot-com boom and the dot-com bust. So there was a time in the late 90s when all these tech companies were hiring like crazy. Dell was hiring, 100 people a day. And then in the, 2000s and 2001, 2003, it was like Dell was firing hundreds of people a day. So what that did was, in that 2003 period when I got started, is it tanked that market. So it's all about supply and demand. When you have no demand because your biggest employer in that part of the city basically says, we're out, thanks for showing up, but now you got to go. And then everyone has to sell their house because they can't get another job because unemployment was higher then. You're in a market where you have a lot of foreclosures and a lot of short sales. So at that time in my career, we built a business around doing a lot of short sales because that was what the market needed at the time. Now, if you look at our business plan when we got started, it was like, we'll do a couple of those, and but we really want to focus on buying, fixing, flipping. We really want to focus on buying and holding. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So the market says, "Hey, Shenoah, hey, Phil, love your plan, think it's fantastic," but that's not what the market needs right now. So instead of showing up and say, "Here I am, and I'm ready to do all the fix and flips that are there," you need to show up. And this is still true today in life of, "Hey, here you are, the market. Here's what the market needs right now." And you have to be responsive to that market, because if you're just coming with your need as opposed to coming to the market with your skill, then it's not going to work out the way that you plan. So we came to the market with our skill, which is we decided very early on in our career that our goal was not just to do this many fix and flips, not just to do this many buy and holds, not to do all these different strategies, but our goal became, we need to make money every single time the phone rings. So we have a very high affinity for $100 bills. And to get the phone to ring, V, as you well know, it takes sometimes 100, sometimes a few hundred dollars, right? And so, literally and I've got my purse downstairs, but, literally, if you think about it, it's like, you've got this $100 bill, let's say, and anytime you let the person get off the phone without making some kind of an offer, without coming up with some kind of a deal. And I kind of do this little joke sometimes at my meetings. It's like you take your $100 bill and you set it on fire. And we started to link that thinking, because I think it's easy for a lot of investors to say, it's just not a deal, so I don't want to waste my time with it. So for us, we came up with this strategy to use, whether we're in a position where the seller's in a position where they have 100% equity, where they own it outright, or whether the seller is in a position where they have little, no, or negative equity. And that's how we showed up in the marketplace. So we showed up to fill a need. And the market's always full of disruptions. And your job as an entrepreneur, and as real estate investors, we are all entrepreneurs, is to find the disruption in the marketplace, come up with a solution for that disruption, implement it, stress test it, make sure it works, put a process around it, hand it to somebody else so that they can do that for you. So we had a team of realtors that we were working with that were listing all of these short sales and finding buyers to be able to help these people to avoid foreclosure. So we were being of service in the world using our specialized knowledge, which is what we trade on as real estate investors. And we were able to do that to create a successful short selling business. And that worked roughly from 2003 until 2008. And the market changed again. And for us, we're hard workers. So, and at that time, we weren't looking for the next disruption. But the next disruption was obviously the banks stopped doing their job, the job of lending. So then we had to just a couple little tweaks to our specialized knowledge to meet the market where the market was at. The strategy changed from we're doing short sales to buyers who could get loans to now, since banks aren't doing their job anymore, we got to do the job of the banks, if you will, which is having that specialized knowledge to know when you have an unsellable house because there's little, no, or negative equity, but you have an unloanable buyer because the banks aren't doing their job. if you have the right knowledge, you can connect these two and make money off of that tribal knowledge, that skill that you bring to the marketplace. So, market shift again, and all throughout this, obviously, buying, fixing, flipping, wholesaling, all the different strategies that we use and have. But our focus still has always been that we want to make money every single time the phone rings. And when you show up like that with a homeowner, you show up in service and you're able to make things happen that maybe someone who's burning $100 bills, burning their marketing dollars, is not really able to monetize and create opportunity from. So for us, again, make money every single time the phone rings, because I don't want to go to update my resume. I don't want to have to go back to corporate America. So that was the kind of strong push. That was the strong why. And that's what, again, got us through both good times and bad times. And of course, building relationships with the right people. And then as I started to coach, right, and help other investors, I could see them make money. And then I could also see them helping other people. And once you see that your effect is sprouting out in the world, there are some days that I feel like, wow, my work here is done. I feel good. But
it is a good feeling when you build your own wealth, and then watching the people that you help to create wealth for themselves.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that I can take any responsibility of that, but because it's all about, can you get up and can you self-start? Do you have discipline? Do you have grit? Do you have resilience? Are you going to show up consistently every day?
This industry is such an amazing industry. Anyone new coming in, all they have to do is just show up. Like you said, just show up. And there are people like you. There's other people out there that just so readily to help. And I feel like you don't really get that in many other industry. And maybe it's just a real estate thing, or maybe it's just, we just have really good people in the industry altogether. But so you started out with doing a lot of short sales, and then you just follow the market.
I follow the market. Yeah.
And I think that's important, because a lot of time people ask, what do you do with your property? Or what do you do in real estate? What do you do with them? I'm like, it's really hard to say, Yeah.
So here's what there's so many of our rental properties that literally, like Phil and I, we refer to them as, that's a player to be named later. So what does that mean? It's like at some point, when or if we are ready to sell, and people are always saying, when are you going to sell? And it's like, well, I don't need the money, so I think I'm going to just continue to sit, because it's been beautiful just sitting on it. Yeah. When I think of a player to be named later, I think I have an opportunity with all of these properties to take them to their best and highest use. Yeah. Which is going to change depending on where we are in the market, which is going to change on how a particular area develops. And I'm open to that. I have an open mind to that. And I don't have a forced exit on any of this stuff. And, I did mention this, and I don't know if I've ever told you this before, V, but I'm actually a fourth generation real estate investor. My great grandparents owned about 40 some odd properties. And so what's so funny about that is when they passed, they did it like this old school way. So they had 6 kids. And this is obviously a joy to the title company, but they basically, had a hat, right? And so see, I got my hat back here. They had a hat, and they had all 6 kids just, pick your 6 to 8 properties. So can you imagine the title company? Well, explain this again. Yeah. But the reason why they did it is because they didn't want it to be fair to everyone. And they started their investing. My great grandfather worked for the Union Pacific Railroad, and they started their investing, just saving from there, buying a house, at a time, until they amassed many houses. My grandparents invested. My parents, still have 12 doors to this day. My mom has a PhD in education and curriculum development. Her wealth is not from what she did as a doctor at that level. It is all from real estate. So for me, it's I see the possibility, and I see the potential of buying and holding, and specifically buying and holding in the right places, and waiting for that property to tell you, here's what it's going to be at that time. I think about some of the development opportunities that I've had on some of my properties. At one point, it was just renovate house as is. And then it's like, okay, the market's changed. So now we're going to do a renovation and an addition. Oh, now the market's changed. So now we're going to scrape it and build something new. Oh, well, now the market's changed. Now we're going to build 2 units and sell them separately. And then at some point, okay, well, the market changes and now you're building a high rise. So you have to be flexible with that to be able to meet that opportunity where it is at that time and be open to listening to the disruption in the market, which disruption is also opportunity. So I think we learned from Chris Voss, it's like that intersection of disruption where it's like, where there's crisis and there's opportunity, danger, crisis, and opportunity at the same time. Right. And I think, I'm going to screw this up, but it was like the Chinese symbol for crisis was something like danger and opportunity. So the way that they describe it, the way that they think about it is very different. And for us, when I think of disruption, I don't get brought down by fear. I get excited by opportunity. And because I know that I'm going to look at that problem or that change differently so that I can show up and again, meet that disruption, meet that opportunity where it is. And with Buddha mind, open mind, so beginner mind, and just meet it where it is.
Okay. So, you've been involved in real estate all your life, but you yourself did not really get into to do your day-to-day transactions until 2003 or so, 2003. So fast forward now, when you started, Austin was not hot, but today Austin is super hot and all the tech company are in again. Tell us about, from that point, obviously when you started out, you did everything with you and Phil all by yourself. What does your day-to-day look like today?
Yeah, we made the mistake of doing a lot of things ourselves. So, and both Phil and I are very left brain. Just to give you an idea on Phil, he was a double major, computer science and electrical engineering. So very left brain, right? Very left brain and really, analytical, which is all great things. And for me, it's like, I have an MBA. So again, we're very left brain in terms of the way that we think about things. And for us, it was understanding just the transitions that a market goes through just to make sure that we can, again, meet the market where it is. And I think that has been something that's really both served us and also in some ways held us back. So I don't know about you, V, but as a left brainer, it's like, I just want to make sure everything's exactly right before I do anything. Right.
Isn't that right? Yep.
So for us, it was about 6 months of studying before that first property was purchased. And because a left brainer, if you think about like their runway, a left brainer has a really long runway, but when they take off like a rocket ship versus a right brainer, ignorance on fire, they're on the runway that, the plane's, going like this and you're like, oh God, am I going to make it through this? And then until they, take off, usually they're about, the same rates. But for us, it is, has been just responding to the market and watching it change. So I would say, all the markets bring unique and different opportunities. So if you're looking for appreciation, Austin is the market to be in. If you're looking for cash flow, San Antonio and Houston are better markets to be in. If you're looking for some sort of that mix, appreciation and cash flow, Dallas is a great market to be in. And, understanding what the different markets bring. And for us, all of our rental properties, they've never been really great at cash flowing. When we look at our rental, when we think about our different strategies, so we use and talk about, and we speak about these 12 different market strategies, and 11 of these strategies create income for us. Yeah. And one of these strategies, we're like, okay, we're going to put this over here to build wealth for ourselves. And the way that I liken it for someone who's in corporate America is, you go to work from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. to create an income for yourself. Yeah. And then you take some of that income and you put it away in a 401k.
Right.
And if you ask someone, what's your cash flow in your 401k? Most people will say, oh, zero. Yeah. No, the truth is it's negative because cash flow is defined as what comes in minus what goes out. And in the 401k, it's all that goes out. You can't even touch it.
I love that analogy.
Yeah. And then so for us, like our rental properties have never made great cash flow, but we didn't care because we did all of this other stuff, all these 11 other strategies so that we could take this part aside to be able to build wealth in spite of it not being in the properties that we hold in Austin, not being super high cash flow, which goes completely, contradictory to everything that you read and see about real estate and real estate investing. So, for me, when I think about the job of my rental properties is to make me rich. That's its only job. I'm going to get
Right.
cash flow doing all these other things, but my
Yeah.
rental properties just make me rich. I don't care if you throw off any cash flow, just like a 401k. You're not going to get any cash flows from that,
Right.
but it's going to make you rich. It's going to give you
Hopefully
retirement.
one day, right? On
Yes,
the 401k.
yeah. I know the stock market's been crazy lately, but what I love about investing in real estate is when the stock market is going up and down and crazy, it's not the real estate market's just still doing its thing, right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
but I think one of the big principles that we adhere to that I think most investors would argue with me forever is this idea about cash flow. And I've broken that cash flow out into using different strategies, whether, again, some of the basics, right? Buying, fixing and flipping, wholesaling, doing short sales, or doing the wraparound mortgages that we do. Those are the ones that are going to build my income. I just want these over here just to make me rich and to build my wealth. So I don't know, how do you look at your rental properties? I'm curious.
Well, I look at them the same way. I don't buy rental for cash flow. I calculate my number that way, but I don't buy them for the purpose of cash flowing, because we have all the other revenues, the things that we do, fix, flip, everything else to generate that income to pay the bills and to afford the lifestyle. And then the rental portfolio will just get paid down by the tenants, which in a way that is cash flow, because your principal is getting paid down by somebody else. And that's something many people don't talk about.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That cash flow.
You get the non-cash bonus of depreciation in there as well.
Yeah.
And then you can take loans out on that rental property. The only thing I will say that's caught us, one thing that I talk about all the time is this concept of an investor glass ceiling. So most investors say, I want to get out of corporate America because I don't want a glass ceiling anymore. I can't grow anymore in my business. Well, investors have a little bit of glass ceiling as well. And that is the number of loans they can get in their own name. And typically it's 4 to 10, and you can only get to 10 if you can also walk on water. So it's a fool's errand. But at some point when you have enough, rental properties, you can be in a position where you can get a commercial loan.
Right.
The only issue with commercial loan is the debt service ratio, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So for us, we have rental properties that have gone up in value like this, a 45-degree angle, but the rents are kind of flat.
Right.
So it's hard to convince, a traditional lender, like, hey, give me a loan on this. I'll be happy with 50% LTV. And they're like, no, the most we can give you is 20% LTV because it's too much risk for us because your, debt service ratios are really low because, because they high value properties.
Right.
So
they're looking at a 1.2 ratio.
Yeah.
And so that means you got a cash flow to be able to do so.
To be able to refinance. Yeah.
Right.
So there are some little glass ceilings out there for some real estate investors that they don't realize until after they've been investing for a while. And then it's like, ooh, didn't know that was gonna kind of punch me in the face. So having alternate strategies, like, for us being able to buy subject to the existing mortgage, just take over payments. It's like, I don't really care if I pay a little bit more for that property because appreciation trumps discount, the initial purchase discount, usually within about 1 to 3 years in a really good market and 1 to 5 years in a so-so market, right? So for me, and especially if I can buy it subject to, I'm also keeping my powder dry because a bank's still going to want 20 to 30% of a down payment. If I can buy it subject to, I might not be bringing anything to the table. Right. So that's a high value to me from a cash standpoint. And so those are a lot of the opportunities that I love to look for now. It's like, my disruption or, my wall or my limit, right, that's been put on me. No problem. If you can't beat them, join them. You can't go over it, can't go under it, got to go around it or got to go through it. So, for us, that's our job as entrepreneurs. That's our job as real estate investors, is to come up with, different solutions. And, we're being, hit from all of these different, angles. And there's a lot of uncertainty whether, are we still going to be able to wholesale in Texas? Are we still going to be able to buy subject to in Texas? Are we still going to be able to, insert item here? And it's part of me is I'm really not worried about it because I know that I'm going to find a workaround for it, just like we have for however many years. And
do you feel like naturally to stay successful and be successful as a real estate investor, as business owner, we then become like jack of all trades.
When we talked about how we first got started, and I don't know if I really fully answered that, but we were doing everything, which meant one of our first capital investments was a trailer so that we could haul off our property, right?
Yeah.
Phil and I would have these very romantic dates where after we would, fill up the trailer, we would go to the dump together. And literally I'd be throwing my gloves out the window as we were leaving just to kind of get the dump off. We were doing everything. We were, as your accountant says, well, you got to set your books up this way. Your attorney says you got to set your books up in your bank accounts this way.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was a full-time bookkeeper.
Right.
And there's this balance between being a real estate investor and being a full, so you kind of have to say, okay, I know the attorneys and lawyers are saying this, but if I'm doing it like that, I can't have a business. I'm not going to be able to invest. I'm going to be a full-time bookkeeper. And if I'm also cleaning out every single property and working on every single property, then I'm not going to be able to scale my business. So when we first started, and this is going back to your earlier questions, like we weren't scaling our business until we realized like the faster our only impediment to growth is ourself and our own self-limiting beliefs, right? The resources, the psychology of the business owner and the resourcefulness of the business owner. So as we started investing, we started to add more and more people to our team. So whether that's a full-time property manager, like literally probably more Phil than me, but like I can go down the street and I can pick out like which rental properties are ours. Like, I don't know that Phil can. I don't know properties Phil hasn't been to in 10 or 15 years by design, right? By design, so that we can be focused on that next opportunity and we can hand over those things that, not that property management is minimum wage activity, but that you can shed all of those things because, when I find, and I literally created a list that's like hundreds of items long of all the things that I won't do in my life and in my business because they are impediments to growth. And for me, I don't want to be a great business operator. I want to be a great business owner because great business operators get tired. Great business owners get rich. And you cannot create a sustainable business by just being a better operator. That was a quote that I took from a gentleman recently who was doing a presentation. And I'm like, oh, that was so spot on. So the more we can kind of shave things off of what we're doing, the more growth that we're going to have and the more joy we are going to have in our lives. And for me, it's like I've told, people who work for me, if you see me doing a minimum wage activity, just know that what's really happening here is I'm doing something I should not be doing. And I'm doing something that will cause me not to be able to create an economy and not to be able to have money to be able to pay you. And I'll tell them exactly that. Yeah. So if you see me doing anything like, if you see me swinging a hammer, if you see me doing a dish, if you see me doing any of these different things, stop me because I'm wasting my time. I need to be doing $1,000+ an hour activities, not $20 an hour activities, because $20 an hour activity is not going to allow me to create economies. And when we create economies, we can employ other people and help change their lives as well. And I'm sure you feel, the same way.
I totally agree with you on it. I think the hardest part was the transitions, right, in the beginning, because you used to getting it done and you have to wait and give your team an opportunity to get it done. So that means you got to sit by and watch. And sometimes you got to watch them make mistake. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenge that we as business owner have to overcome ourselves.
For sure. Letting it go and then seeing it as a training moment. One of the things that I see a lot of real estate investors do that I have to pull them back from, and I don't know if you see this as well, is their business is going really well, except they're running out of time.
Right.
So the first thing that they want to outsource is I want to outsource all of my marketing and I want to outsource all of my talking to people. I'm like, wonderful. You're going to outsource it to a VA who, when you're talking to a business owner, right? When you're talking to a VA, because I get a lot of calls, I'm sure you do too, for, hey, would you sell your properties, right? Yeah. Because I know when I'm talking to somebody who's the rainmaker versus somebody who's getting paid $4 an hour, right? And so, I'll tell them, it's like, why would you outsource your rain-making $1,000+ an hour activities? And I'll ask them, what are you still doing at your house? Are you still cooking? Are you still cleaning? Are you still doing the laundry? Are you still picking up after your dog? Are you still washing your dog? Are you doing all these things? these are the things you need to let go, because this is not bringing you joy, but it's going to add another 5 or 10 or more hours every single week so that you can keep being the rainmaker. Everything has to get done.
Yep.
Everything doesn't have to get done by the rainmaker.
Right.
And you have to understand which things are rainmaking activities and which things are not, even if there's stuff that you do in your home. Like, I hope I'm in a no non-judgment zone view with you as well as with your listeners, but I don't put up my Christmas tree. I don't trim my Christmas tree. I don't wrap my Christmas. I have someone else do all the decorating for me. I don't put it away, because as much as I'd like to have it, I don't need to be the one doing it. In order to grow, you shed things. I'll never forget, I had a conversation with a contractor once, and he was really growing in his business, but he was running out of time. And I'm like, describe your day. Let's do a Pareto analysis on it and let's check it out. And as it turns out, he was spending like 3 or 4 hours a day driving. Yeah. And he's trying to be on the phone, but it doesn't always work. And I'm like, you need to hire someone and pay them $20 an hour to drive you. Right. So you can sit in the back, working, calling, and being the rainmaker. And it was like, that's crazy. And I'm like, think about how much could you easily pay for that person? Could you easily have that person go and do all this other stuff for you? And could you easily do one more house a year? And even if that one more house a year, if that made you 150,000, and you're only paying this person 40,000, do the math. Get a scale and weigh it out. But it's so contrary to how we're raised and conditioned, and our self-limiting beliefs sometimes get in the way and don't allow us to scale. And in fact, we're in January of 2022. I'm going through an exercise right now to add more stuff to this list that I have of the list of things that Shenoah won't do. And it's not because I'm better than, but it's because I want to create an economy that includes more people. It's because God has blessed me with these amazing gifts that don't include cleaning the house, right? It's like, God's going to be pretty angry with me if I tell him, well, I spent I had a spotless clean house and I did it myself. God's going to be upset, because God's going to say, Shenoah, you were put on this earth for way more than that. The parable of talents.
Yeah. I recently read a book, Who Not How.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yes. And I love it. He's right. The normal belief that we've been instilled in our head is that you can't have it all. But he said, you can have it all. You just got to get the who to do all of it for you so you can have everything.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
So, yeah. And in that prime example, he actually used like a housekeeper, right, to clean laundry, cook.
Whenever I tell people that I have a chef who comes in every Monday, I get this look like, well, who do you think you are? And like, I save money not going out to eat. A very specific diet I want to serve my body. I save money not going out to eat. I save time by not driving back and forth. I know I'm getting put inside of my body, because when you go to restaurants, you don't always know. And when I do the math, I'm actually saving money. But most people don't see it that way.
Well, that is my next thing on the list, is to get someone to cook for me.
Friend that cooks is who's cooking for me right now. And they have a franchise all over the United States, by the way. It's $50 to $60 an hour, depending on what market you're in. Yeah. And, give them your menu, you give them your likes, dislikes, allergies, and they come in for me, they come in every Monday at 8:30 a.m. I tell them here's some of the things that I would like to eat, and then dealer's choice. They go to the grocery store, they do all this shopping for, everything. They come back, they cook everything. I've got glass dishes that are stackable. So it's like meal prep is done by 1:30 p.m. for the rest of the week. And I don't have to worry about it. And it makes it so that I can be focused on the things that matter, the things that are going to push the needle for me, right? Everything has to be done. It just doesn't have to be done by the rainmaker.
Isn't that amazing? Like, it allows you to free up your time to go buy one more property, one more rental. It's like an infinity return. I know we got off on a few other topics, but I think they are really important to the overall of what we do as a business owner, real estate investor. As we are wrapping up here, you got so much going on. What's next for you?
That's a good question. And, I'll say it's probably a boring answer. If you ask Warren Buffett, the investments that he makes are not the ones that get all the applauds, or probably more the ones that generate the yawns. But the yawns have served Warren pretty well over the years, and the yawns have served us pretty well over the years. And I think a big part of it is that consistency. So, for us, even though we don't have to lead and be in service in the community anymore, in the real estate investing community, we still love to do what we do. I still love going out and giving presentations and encouraging new people as they're getting started. And I found a way to just so fun and so joyous for me because I include a lot of humor, because I will say my third career probably will be in comedy. So stand up is in my future, but I think it's just going to be continuing the legacy of Texas REIAs and continuing to be of service and within the investor community to continue to learn, to continue to grow, to continue to be plugged in and help people sort through some of the ridiculousness that I will say is on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok around, real estate investing. I mean, I have a YouTube channel, you do, a podcast, you do. But I don't try to claim to be everything to everyone. I am deep in my niche, and my niche is Texas. And we are going to continue Texans teaching Texans how to invest in Texas using strategies that actually work here, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know about you, but when you talk to a new investor, like sometimes people will say, I'm gonna get into this tax deed sale. And it's, oh gosh, see you in a couple of years when you figure out that really doesn't work the way that you see it on TV or YouTube or all these different places. So
right. I think we're at that age, information is abundant. And sometimes it could be a problem for people.
It's hard it's hard to sort through and find. It's the Amazon effect. There's 1,000 choices, and then we don't know, and I always say like the internet knows everything. But the problem is there's just a fair amount of ridiculousness sprinkled in there. And the trouble as a new investor is they don't know which one is which. They might have the ingredients, but they don't have the formula of how it all works together. Yeah. And for me, I love kind of the idea of continuing to provide the formula. So marching forward with Texas REIAs, marching forward with property acquisition. We put a lot of our wealth into multifamily and commercial investments as well. We do a lot of loans to other investors as they're getting started. So that's fun too, to be able to, loan on that unloanable house on that unachievable timeline. Right. Has always been fun to be able to do, and to watch someone make a lot of money going down that process is something that I love and something that feeds me. I know for you too. I would say more of the same.
All right. So here comes the shocker. What's the one thing that people might be surprised to learn about you?
Gosh, I might say, and I mentioned it a second ago, that my third career is going to be in stand-up. So, I try to insert as much. There's a lot of funny things that happens in real estate, and I try to insert as much of that as possible in my presentations because it keeps me mentally on my toes. And I love interacting with the audience. And sometimes you know what the audience is going to say, and sometimes you don't. So it just keeps building those neural pathways, keeps you very sharp. But I would probably say, just knowing that that is one of my goals is probably something that not too many people know about me, but something that I get a big kick out of. Probably my best stuff that I get the most enjoyment out of is just playing with the audience and just asking them questions. And, I always ask, do I have permission to say what's on my mind, even if it might be a little inappropriate? Is everybody in here promise not? Can we just not cancel? Don't cancel me, at least not tonight, right? So, I get to say a bunch of stuff like that. Or if I'm working with an audience that's like not being very responsive, it's, I know you're out there. I can hear you breathing, So I just get to say just a lot of fun stuff.
And one of the virtual online presentations that we do a lot now, where you don't get to see the audience and you don't get to see their interactions, it's very challenging.
It can be,
when you try to crack jokes or gauge audience engagement. So
you're in charge of laughing at your own jokes now. That's what we've figured out over the last 2 years, for sure.
Yep. All right. So last questions. How does the audience get in touch with you?
So you can come and see us at a live meeting. The easiest way to do it is to just go over to Texas REIAs, REIAS. REIAS stands for Real Estate Investor Associations. We say REIAs, REIAS, because it's plural. We have 4 different meetups throughout the state. Love to have you guys join us in person, share some tribal knowledge with you guys, all the different stuff, changes in contracts and laws that are happening happening all the time. Make sure you know what works here in Texas, give you the market update, and share the strategies that we use in our own business and how we're constantly pivoting in light of how the market changes and meeting the market where it's at and sharing that knowledge, that experience, and just having that discussion with the members that are part of our association. So yeah, TexasREIAs.com.
Thank you for watching the Real Estate Ballers Show. If you find value in this show, give us some support. Like us, subscribe to us. Help us get the words out by sharing this episode with a friend, or give us a shout out on social media using the hashtag REBallers. Lastly, leave us a comment below. Let us know what you learned or what you're doing that's working or not working. See you next time.